Okay, so this all happened during Christmas break 2 years ago. I was 17 and staying at my aunt's place in Corbin Hollow, a super quiet town in Oregon where nothing ever really happens. My aunt had gone out of state to visit her daughter for the holidays, and I volunteered to house sit for a week. You know, feed the cat, water the plants, check the mail. Easy stuff. I thought I'd have the place to myself, chill out, maybe binge some horror movies and microwave my way into a food coma. But this one night? Yeah, that night changed how I look at windows, especially at night, especially blinds. It was around 11 p.m. Cold outside, like that kind of cold that makes the air bite your skin. I had the fireplace going in her sunroom. That's this cozy little side room she had turned into a movie nook. There's a big comfy couch, thick curtains, and a door that leads out to the side driveway. That door had a motion-activated light above it. Pretty standard stuff. So there I was under a blanket watching some old slasher flick with the cat curled up by my feet. Everything was normal, peaceful. The kind of quiet you only get in small towns where everyone's in bed by 9. Then that light outside flipped on. It was sudden. Just click, and the outside lit up in this washed-out yellow glow. I paused the movie, sat up, and looked at the door. The blinds were closed tight, but I could still see the light bleeding in around the edges. At first, I didn't think much of it. Probably a raccoon or a stray cat. But it kept bothering me. The light didn't turn off. I lowered the volume and sat there, holding my breath, trying to listen. The house made the usual creaks and groans that old houses make, but nothing else. I peeked through one of the blinds. Nothing. The driveway was empty. Still, the hair on the back of my neck wouldn't relax. To calm myself down, I put on my sneakers, grabbed a flashlight, and walked around the side of the house. Cold slapped me in the face the second I stepped outside. I did a slow lap around the driveway and backyard. Nothing. Just silence and trees swaying in the wind. I even said out loud, "See? Told you it was nothing." Like a total weirdo trying to convince myself. I went back in, locked the door, kicked off my shoes, and hit play on the movie again. About 20 minutes later, just as the killer in the movie was about to pop out, the motion light flipped on again. Only this time I didn't get up. I froze. The blanket suddenly felt like it was weighing me down. The cat perked up too, ears twitching. That light should have gone off by now if it was just an animal. I turned the TV volume all the way down and waited, heart pounding in my ears. Then came the sound. A loud clang. Like a metal bucket or can getting knocked over just outside. I actually jumped. The cat bolted off the couch and disappeared under the table, and that's when I got scared. I didn't want to look. The blinds were shut, and I was in the only part of the room that couldn't be seen directly from the door. But something told me not to move, not to make a sound. Every little instinct in my body screamed, "Don't look, don't look," but I did. I turned my head just enough to face the blinds. I wasn't looking at them, not really. I was looking through them, and there she was. I don't even know how to describe it. It was just this shape. A perfect human outline behind the blinds, not moving, arms slightly out to the sides. Like a statue, just standing there. I couldn't see her face, just that there was someone standing there watching. My mouth went dry. My chest felt like it was collapsing in on itself. I could barely take a breath. My whole body screamed to run, but I didn't want to draw attention to myself. I slid off the couch as slowly as I could, trying not to make a sound. I made it halfway across the room toward the dining area door when it happened. Bang! Bang, bang! She started slamming on the window. I dropped to the floor and crawled the rest of the way behind the wall. My heart was going crazy. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely pull my phone out of my pocket. I didn't know what to do. I was alone. No neighbors close by. No one was going to hear me scream. Then, in this shaky, cracking voice, I yelled, "I'm calling the police." The banging stopped. Dead silence. I peeked around the corner just for a second and saw her silhouette move toward the door. That's when I saw her clearly through the glass panel. She was old, probably late 60s or early 70s. Wild, gray, wiry hair that looked like it hadn't been brushed in a decade. Her eyes were huge, bulging, and completely bloodshot. Her mouth hung open slightly, twitching. She just stood there for a moment. I thought maybe she was confused. Maybe she needed help. Then she started hitting the glass with both hands hard, over and over again, screaming something I couldn't even understand. It wasn't words, it was just noise. Gibberish, guttural howling, that was it for me. I slammed the door to the sunroom shut, locked it, and ran straight into the downstairs bathroom, which didn't have any windows. I locked that too, shoved a towel against the crack under the door, and called 911. The dispatcher kept me talking, told me to stay hidden, find something to protect myself. I grabbed a metal candle holder and just waited. And waited. Then I heard it, glass shattering. Not from the sunroom, the living room. She had broken a window. She was in the house. I covered my mouth and sat completely still. My mind was racing. What if she found the bathroom? What if the lock didn't hold? I sat there in the dark for maybe 3 minutes, but it felt like hours. Then I heard her. Footsteps. Slow, dragging steps across the hardwood floor. Something creaked. Then nothing. I waited. Eventually, I reached for the door and cracked it open, just a sliver. And there she was, standing in the middle of the living room, under the soft glow of the broken hallway lamp. Her face was pale, her lips cracked and dry. She turned her head toward the bathroom and saw me. She didn't hesitate. She charged. I slammed the door shut just in time. She hit it hard. Then she started whispering. I couldn't make out the words, but she just kept repeating the same sentence again and again. The tone didn't even sound angry. It was almost like a lullaby, but broken and sick. Then, bam, 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 someone was at the front door. Loud knocking. I scrambled to the bathroom window, pushed it open, and screamed for help. 2 cops were already in the yard. I saw flashlights sweeping across the driveway. I yelled for them to come in through the broken window. They yelled back, "Stay put." "We've got her." Everything went quiet. Then yelling, commands, a scuffle. After what felt like forever, I cracked the bathroom door open again. They had her. One of the officers had her pinned down near the fireplace. The other was already calling for medical transport. She wasn't resisting, just lying there on the floor, eyes wide open, staring at nothing. When I looked at her, she suddenly looked straight at me. I'll never forget her expression, like she knew me, like she was waiting for me. I looked away. Later, the police told me her name was Mrs. Langley. She lived in the old white house at the edge of the neighborhood, the one everyone thought was abandoned. Apparently, she hadn't been seen outside in years. She was supposed to be cared for by a woman named Mara, who turned out to be her niece. Mara barely showed up anymore, just dropped off groceries once a week and left her alone. They said Mrs. Langley had severe mental issues, dementia, paranoia. She had wandered out that night during one of her episodes and somehow thought my aunt's house was hers. My aunt pressed charges, trying to hold Mara responsible, but the case didn't go anywhere. No one could prove neglect. The good news? Mrs. Langley was placed in a long-term psychiatric care facility after that night. She never came back to Corbin Hollow, but sometimes when I'm back in that sunroom watching a movie, I still catch myself glancing at the blinds just to make sure she's not standing there. So, this happened just last winter, January 2023, when I went up to my cabin in northern Vermont. The place is about a 3-hour drive from where I live in Massachusetts. It's not much, just a little 1-bedroom wooden cabin tucked away in a quiet stretch of woods. Technically, it's in a tiny town called Brooksville, but honestly, there's nothing there but trees, hills, and a few scattered homes. I go up there a few times every winter to ski or just get away for the weekend. I bought the place a few years ago when the prices were still reasonable. It's small, sure, but it sits on a big piece of land. The kind where once you're there, you don't hear a thing except wind in the trees and the occasional owl. Peaceful. Mostly. There's only one real neighbor nearby. His house is right across a tall, worn-out wooden fence. I've never met the guy, never even seen him actually. The fence keeps things private, which is fine with me. On the other side of the property, just woods. Thick, dark woods that go on forever. Further down the road, maybe a 5-minute drive, there's another guy named Rick I've bumped into a few times. He skis too, so we've shared a few lifts and beers over the years. Good guy, real laid back. Anyway, I made my first trip of the season on a cold, gray Saturday. Snow was already piled up along the sides of the road, and the trees looked like they'd been dipped in ice. I got there around 4 in the afternoon. Everything looked normal. Same creaky steps, same front door that sticks a little when it's cold, but as I was walking up I heard it. A sound I wasn't expecting. Laughter. A kid's laughter. Not far away either, somewhere near the neighbor's house on the other side of the fence. It was quick. Just a few giggles and then gone. Strange, though. I'd never seen or heard any kids around here before. Maybe my neighbor had grandkids visiting? I didn't think much of it at the time. Stepping into the cabin after months away always feels a little strange. The air inside is cold and stale, like the place has been holding its breath. I turned on the heat, got the water running, unpacked a little, then collapsed onto the couch. The long drive plus the cold air had me ready to pass out. That night, I slept hard. Didn't wake up once. The next morning I was up early, made some coffee, ate a quick breakfast, then started getting into my ski gear. I was zipping up my jacket when I glanced out the window and noticed something odd in the snow, right there. On my front lawn, half buried in fresh snow, was a big red ball. It looked like one of those old rubber playground balls kids kick around during recess. Bright red, scuffed up a little, just sitting there. I hadn't seen it the day before. It definitely wasn't there when I arrived. My first thought was that it must belong to the neighbor's kid, maybe the one I heard laughing. So I picked it up and tossed it gently over the fence. Figured they'd see it and grab it later. Then I headed out for a full day of skiing. Clear skies, perfect snow. By the time I got back, the sun was already down and I was beat. I'd eaten with Rick and some folks at the lodge, so all I wanted was a hot shower and some sleep. I walked up the path, my boots crunching in the snow, and stopped dead in my tracks. The red ball was back. Same exact spot. Right in the center of the lawn. Now that was weird. I stared at it for a few seconds, just kind of puzzled. Had it bounced back over somehow? Did a kid come over and drop it there again? I didn't hear anything all day. No kids, no cars, nothing. Still, I wasn't going to lose sleep over a ball. I picked it up and tossed it back over the fence again, a little harder this time. That night was cold. Really cold. Around 2:30 in the morning, I woke up suddenly. Not because of a dream or anything, I just woke up. My room was quiet, but something felt off. Then I heard it. That same laughter. Light, high-pitched, playful. A kid's laugh, drifting through the trees. Only this time it didn't fade away. It kept going. Little bursts of giggling like a kid playing hide-and-seek or something. But the weirdest part was how close it sounded, like it was coming from just outside the window. I got out of bed and peeked through the blinds. There was nothing there. No movement, no footprints in the snow. But just as I was about to go back to bed, I spotted it again. The red ball, back in the same spot, just sitting there. I got goosebumps. This was officially too weird. I grabbed my coat and stepped outside, not even bothering with boots, just slippers and pajamas. I walked right up to the ball, staring at it. The surface looked wet, like it had been handled. But no footprints around it. No tracks in or out. Just snow. This time I didn't throw it. I picked it up and brought it inside. I set it down in the living room, near the fireplace, and just stood there staring at it. Nothing happened. The laughter had stopped. The house was quiet again. The next morning, I decided I needed to talk to the neighbor. I walked around the fence and knocked on his front door. It took a minute, but finally, an old man opened the door. He looked surprised to see me, but was friendly enough. I introduced myself and asked if he had grandkids visiting, or if the red ball belonged to someone in his family. He looked at me and frowned a little. "No kids around here," he said. "Haven't been for years." I asked again. "Are you sure? I've been hearing laughter at night, and this red ball keeps showing up on my lawn." He shook his head. "No one around here's got kids. The closest neighbor with a family is miles out." I thanked him and walked back to my place, that weird knot forming in my stomach. I left the red ball in the living room and went skiing again that afternoon. I tried to shake the feeling. I tried to pretend it wasn't anything. That night I came back to the cabin totally worn out. I dumped my bag on the couch, peeled off my wet socks, and flopped into bed. I didn't even pull the blankets up. I just passed out. But it happened again. The laughter. It was louder this time, closer. It didn't fade. It circled the house. I jumped out of bed and ran to the window. And yup, there it was. That red ball, sitting in the snow. Again. I ran to the living room, empty. The ball was gone. I know I left it right by the fireplace. I remember looking at it before heading to bed. Now it was outside. That's when it hit me. Someone, or something, had to have come inside while I was sleeping. My chest tightened. My breath felt short. I turned on every light in the cabin, threw my gear into my bag, checked every window and door. All locked. I stood there, heart pounding, too afraid to turn the lights off again. But eventually I made my way back to the bedroom, shut the door, and peeked out the window one last time. That's when I saw it. Not just the ball. Behind it, half hidden by the tree line, was a child, barefoot, in pajamas, just standing there in the snow, not moving, staring at my window. I dropped to the floor, closed the blinds, closed every curtain in the house. I didn't sleep. I just waited for morning. As soon as the sun came up, I packed the car and left. The ball was still out there, right in the middle of the yard. I didn't touch it, didn't even glance at it as I backed down the driveway. I haven't been back since. I still don't know how the ball got outside. I don't know who that kid was. I don't know how someone got into the cabin without breaking a single locker window. And the scariest part? It wasn't just the ball, or the laughter, or the footprints that never appeared. It was that kid, that pale, motionless kid, standing in the snow, staring through my window like he'd been watching the whole time, and the way he smiled. That smile is going to haunt me for the rest of my life. Let me tell you a story about the time my cousin Matt and I lived together in this old 2-story rental house in a town called Pine Hollow. This happened just last year in 2024. I still think about it way too often, especially at night when the house creaks or the wind whistles just right. Matt and I had been roommates for a while, sharing rent and working at the same delivery company just outside of town. The commute was easy, only 10 minutes, and we carpooled every morning. Life was simple, quiet, routine. That all changed when someone new moved into the house next door. It was weird from the start. We didn't see a moving truck. No one brought in furniture. No one walked up the front steps with a box or even turned on a porch light. One day the place was empty. The next there was a black pickup truck parked in the driveway, and the blinds were suddenly shut tight. That was it. For the first 2 days we didn't see a soul. The windows stayed covered. The truck didn't move. No lights flicked on at night. We couldn't even tell if it was one person or a whole family living there. It was just off. On the third day, Matt and I decided to introduce ourselves. Just a friendly, neighborly thing. We walked over after dinner and knocked on the door. The truck was in the driveway, so we knew someone was home. But no one came. We waited for a bit, then turned to leave. That's when Matt stopped me and said, "Don't look fast, but glance at the window beside the door." So I looked, slowly, and sure enough, someone was there. A man. Just a hand pulling back the blinds and a pale, shadowy face staring right at us. Not blinking. Not moving. Just watching. We didn't say anything. We just walked away, trying to play it cool. But once we got back inside, we both agreed. Whoever that guy was, something about him felt seriously wrong. Things got stranger that very night. Around 1 a.m., I woke up to a sound. A steady, scraping, mechanical kind of noise. At first I thought it was in my dream. But nope, it was real. I sat up, listened. It was coming from outside. Now Pine Hollow stays pretty warm all year, so we sleep with the windows open. From my second floor bedroom, I can see into the neighbor's backyard. So I pulled back the curtain and looked. There he was. The new neighbor, a tall, broad guy in a gray hoodie with the hood pulled up, which was weird on its own. It was over 70 degrees that night. But what really got me was what he was doing. He was sawing a huge piece of wood, just standing there in the dark, slowly and deliberately cutting away. No light on, just the glow of the moon and the sound of the blade dragging across the wood. I got Matt, who was already awake. "You hear that too?" he asked. He looked just as freaked out as I felt. We figured we'd ask him to stop nicely. It was late and Matt had an early shift. So we went outside, walked to the fence, and knocked. Not loudly, just enough to get his attention. The sound stopped immediately. Dead silence. We waited. Nothing happened. The gate didn't open. No footsteps. No voice. We stood there a minute, hearts thudding, then walked back home. At least the noise had stopped. But that wasn't the end of it. Not even close. A few nights later, something woke me up again. This time it wasn't sawing. It was screaming, muffled at first, like someone shouting into a pillow. I stumbled to the window, heart already racing. The sound was coming from the neighbor's house. I squinted through the dark, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The man was out there again, in the yard. But this time he was dragging something. It was big, wrapped in some kind of tarp or cloth. He was hunched over it, pulling it across the grass toward his back door. He stopped for a second, then slowly lifted his head and looked straight at me. I dropped to the floor. I didn't even think. I ran to Matt's room, breathless. "He's dragging something," I whispered. "And someone's screaming." Matt was already on the phone with the cops. He didn't even hesitate. While he talked, we heard a loud slam downstairs, the back door. We looked at each other, eyes wide. "He's in the house," Matt whispered, still on the line with 911. "He just came in through the back." I crept to the hallway, heart pounding so hard I thought it might give me away. From the top of the stairs I listened. Kriak. The floorboards down there groaned under his steps. He was walking around, slowly, quietly. I ran back, shut Matt's door, and we shoved his dresser in front of it. There was no lock. We braced ourselves just in time. The footsteps rushed up the stairs. First, we heard the bathroom door open. Then he was right outside the bedroom. He started pushing, then ramming, then hitting the door with something heavy, like a crowbar, or maybe even an axe. The whole door shuddered under each hit. We pushed back with all we had, muscles burning, barely holding it shut, and then he stopped. We waited, listening. The house fell silent again. Minutes passed. It felt like an hour. We finally cracked the door open and peeked into the hallway. Empty. Then from downstairs, "Police!" A deep voice, firm, loud. We rushed down the stairs in relief, only to find the living room empty. Matt froze. "Wait," he said. "Where is he?" Then I saw it. Someone crouching behind the dining room table. He stood up. It wasn't a cop. He came at us fast. Matt and I bolted back upstairs, this time slamming ourselves into the bathroom. At least that door had a lock. We held our breath, listening to the pounding outside the door. And then, another voice from downstairs. "This is the police. Drop your weapon." Everything stopped. Then we heard it, the clatter of a knife hitting the tile. Real footsteps. Real officers. They shouted up the stairs, and we came out slowly, hands up. They had him, handcuffed, bleeding from a cut on his forehead. One of the cops asked if we were okay, and we told them everything. The sawing, the screaming, the tarp, the back door. They took it seriously. 2 officers stayed with us while others went next door with their guns drawn. A second squad car arrived. Then a third, and finally, they brought her out. A woman. Barefoot. Her clothes were ripped and dirty. She was sobbing, barely able to stand. She had been locked in that man's basement, screaming, kicking, hoping anyone would hear her. They also found a body in the backyard, wrapped up just like we saw. The tarp had blood soaking through it. They never told us who the woman was or who the body belonged to. All we know is the man had kidnapped her. He killed someone. And he had probably been planning to kill again. The house next door is empty now. Back on the rental market. The landlord tried painting the outside, fixing the shutters, and planting some flowers. But no one's moved in yet. Matt and I still live here. But things aren't the same. We double-check the locks now. We sleep with the windows shut even when it's hot. And whenever I hear a strange noise at night, whether it's the wind or the old pipes, I still catch myself looking out the window, expecting to see that gray hoodie in the dark. And sometimes, just sometimes, I swear I do.